One of my favorite things to do on this channel is to mock celebrities for their absurdity. Now, I try not to do it in a way that is mean, but we definitely need to highlight just how bonkers they act in public squares. And that includes one George Clooney, who is a talented man, no doubt about it. This video is not a statement about his talent. But let's be real, he can be a little kooky. 'Cause I've been living life right like I could just die any minute. Going for a ride down the side. Hi everyone, my name is Jacob Berry. Welcome to the StudioJake vidcast where I talk about all things pop culture. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, and if you're watching on YouTube, ring that little bell so you get notifications when I post a new vidcast and consider becoming a channel member. So George Clooney, he has been the star of some of my favorite films, including Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, Burn After Reading, Hail Caesar, and a plethora of others. Some I absolutely hated, like Batman and Robin. But the man is a talented director, he's a talented actor. I do think he's a bit overrated. Sometimes he comes across as sort of this beta male, like his coffee commercials where he's always getting owned by whatever female celebrity happens to also be in the commercial. It's like, man, have some dignity. Anyway, I digress on that. But one thing that can't be denied about him is he is kind of your typical Hollywood celebrity elitist. He thinks he knows everything just because he's been to Darfur. And I've never been to Darfur, so good for him. But come on now, being an actor and going to a place does not make you superior to someone else, much less someone like me, right? He's just wealthy, he's just an actor, but he seems to think that he's also a journalist who is speaking truth to power and all this other nonsense. Megyn Kelly, host of the Megyn Kelly Show, called him out on his behavior, and instead of taking it in a dignified manner that one would think that George Clooney would, because he's in all of these Armani commercials, he's always wearing fancy watches, and he's ugly dyeing his hair. You would think that he would approach this. Instead, he decided to have a little struggle session with the co-star of a play he is in, and he went after Megyn Kelly for calling out his nonsense. Well, Megyn Kelly responded to this little struggle session, and I wanted to read off a transcript of what she said because it is pretty funny. All right, so I'm not going to read the whole transcript. You can go watch this on Megyn Kelly's YouTube channel or find her podcast somewhere. But I just wanted to read this little segment of it because she really captures just how obtuse people like George Clooney are. Megyn Kelly says, "We need to talk about George Clooney, who is busy trying to look 30 years younger than he actually is with weirdly dyed hair as he tries his hand at Broadway. He is currently starring in a stage adaptation of his movie Good Night and Good Luck about Edward R. Morrow, because Clooney fancies himself a journalist and has lots of thoughts on how journalists need to do journalism the way he does it, i.e., stumbling upon the biggest story of the decade, that a sitting president is mentally infirm and ought to be 25th amended right out of office, saying absolutely nothing for weeks on end, and then only after that president humiliates himself on the national stage at a presidential debate and then refuses to step down as the entire Democrat Party watches its electoral chances up and down the ballot, goes swirling down the toilet, finally decides to write an op-ed in the New York Times saying Joe Biden is not up for the job. That is not journalism, George. It is cowardice, followed by naked partisanship. You are not fooling anyone." He chooses to finish the play by lecturing the audience on how journalism ought to be. Speaking as Murrow, he warns about the ongoing struggle for truth and integrity in the media and about the potential for the media to be manipulated and used for propaganda. Apparently, he ends the whole thing with a video montage featuring yours truly and Elon Musk, the famous clip of Elon Musk not saluting anyone but waving, but the media then tried to smear him with this. So she goes on, "Elon Musk and I are the dangers George Clooney fears, and not the propaganda that was pushed on us for 4 years by his favorite leftist so-called journalists that Biden was fine and that these were all cheap fakes we were saying, or for the 4 years prior that Donald Trump was a Russian asset. The propaganda you see is that you would dare to defend anything done by Trump. That is a violation of truth and integrity in the media." So she then goes on to talk about George Clooney's whole involvement with the Biden downfall. And then she played a clip from the Actors on Actors series where he's talking to Patty LePune. I hope I'm pronouncing that rightly. Actually, I don't care if I'm pronouncing it right. She's got plenty of money. And now she's the one who went viral because she shrieked at an audience member at one of her plays for not wearing a mask. And Megyn Kelly highlights this. And then she plays a clip of Clooney talking to LePune. This is Clooney speaking. What we do in this is we talk about the responsibilities of journalists to hold truth to power, right? That's our goal. And so if you're doing that and we don't tell people what to think, when we show that montage at the end, for instance, you see Megyn Kelly, who's come out and said, I'm a journalist. I didn't say I was a journalist. And then LePone says, well, neither is she, by the way. Clooney continues, but I'm not quite sure what she's done. I have at least been to, Darfur and Sudan and the Congo and been shot at to try to get these stories out. And I'm not sure what she's done to be a journalist. Having said that, we only show her words in this play. We don't tell people what to think. It's not out of context. We don't manipulate it. We literally just go, these are your words. And so then Megyn Kelly, and this is the last part of the transcript I'm going to read, but this rebuttal just seals the deal for me. Megyn Kelly says, he, George Clooney, thinks I am objecting to something he put in his show about me. I have no idea what you put in your show about me, and I couldn't care less, sir. I was mocking you for trying to lecture journalists on how to do journalism based on your own failure to speak truth to power. You failed. You only did it when you knew your candidate was going to cost you up and down the ballot. Clooney is not quite sure what yours truly has done to be a journalist, which does not surprise me at all. Why would he know anything about the journalism career I have had? Absolutely none of my stories held any interest for George Clooney. Of that, I have no doubt. And from there, Megyn Kelly goes into a list of people that she has interviewed over the years, and it is extensive, I have to say. Megyn Kelly is one of the few journalists that I respect. And that just goes to the smugness of these celebrities. He thinks because he played Edward Murrow in a movie and now on a play that he's just like him. Oh, I've written a New York Times op-ed. I know what it's like to be a journalist. Now listen, I'm not a journalist. I will be the first to tell you that. I am a pop culture commentator. That's what I do. I don't report the news. I read off the news and I react to it like I'm doing in this video. So I want to make that abundantly clear. However, I have worked with journalists. I have shared out their stories as a marketing exec. I have done all sorts of things. I have worked with them. I have talked with them. I have been interviewed by them. I have interviewed a few journalists. I would just like to point that out. So, Mr. Clooney, you're a moron. You're an idiot. And by the way, that story he told about getting shot at, he wasn't shot at. Some punk tried to mug him when he went to visit the Middle East. It had nothing to do with it. He wasn't dodging bullets. I love how these left-wing loonies, they always have to make their stories bigger, like with Hillary Clinton saying she was dodging sniper fire, or Brian Williams saying his helicopter got fired upon, and now George Clooney claiming he was shot at when he was in the Middle East. It's bull malarkey. It's stupid, and it's easily debunked. And that's what George Clooney and the rest of these celebrities are. I held no sympathy for them when I hear that they're on hard times, when I hear that their movies bomb, or I hear that, George Clooney is still following his old girlfriend before he met his current wife. I don't feel any bit of sorrow or pity because people like George Clooney stood by and did nothing when we were put under house arrest in the 2020s for the unspecified virus of unknown origins, which now we know was all propaganda. It was all made up by a man who tortured puppies and got paid for it. So no, George Clooney, you are a fool. You are not even a court jester. You are a fool, an elitist slob who just reads off lines for a living. And I'm not saying acting isn't hard. I've done some acting, but don't sit there and pretend that you know what journalism is when all you do for a living is you get to go to swanky parties and make yourself look like a beta in coffee commercials. So no, stand down, George Clooney. We don't want to hear from you. You are full of crap. If you liked that video, be sure to give it a like, leave me a comment on what you think, share it out to all your friends, and subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, ring that little bell so you get notifications when I post a new vidcast, and consider becoming a channel member. It's a great way where you can support me and the stuff that I do here. Another way you can support me is to head on over to my new website, studiojakemedia.substack.com. Now, you can read most of my articles for free, but if you want to comment or suggest something for me to cover, or even suggest a topic for this vidcast, you do have to subscribe. And I hope you do, because it's a great way to support me and the work that I do. Thank you in advance. Another way to support me is to purchase one or all four of my books. Up first is Cacophony, A Tale of Faith and Fear. It is about a group of angels warring against demons over the souls of a small Texas town. If you are into the paranormal or supernatural thrillers, this is definitely the book for you. If you're more interested into reading about fairy tales, pick up a copy of my novels, The Seven Royals. Book 1 is All Good Things. Book 2 is Breaking the Stars. It follows a group of your favorite fairy tale characters who have to come together to defeat a dark army of orcs, werewolves, vampires, and evil mages so they can be free. You are not going to want to miss this, especially if you are into high fantasy, magic, dragons, powerful swords, and so much more. Last but definitely not least is my fantasy romance novella, Blessed Child. It follows an elf princess who finds herself pregnant with a human child. This sends her kingdom into chaos, so her father, the king of the elves, hires a disgraced knight who is on the path of redemption to be her bodyguard. The two form an unlikely friendship as they navigate the turmoil around them. It is life affirming, it is about courage under fire, and I think you will enjoy it. So pick up one or all four at Amazon.com. Leave me a 5-star review. It really helps out small indie creators like myself. If you want to find out more about my writings or read some of my short stories and poems, head on over to my locals community. The link is in the description of the video. Once again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time right here on Studio Jake. 'Cause I've been living life